He just wanted a steak. That's what he told himself as he pushed open the glass door of Carver's grill, the faded sign creaking in the Arkansas's heat. But the slip of paper tucked inside the check at the end of his meal would unravel everything. It was a sluggish Wednesday afternoon in Fort Smith, Arkansas, July 2025. The air shimmered with heat rising off the cracked asphalt, the kind of heavy, tired warmth that made every step feel like wading through molasses. The strip mall housing Carver's grill sat like a forgotten relic between a shuttered vape shop and a check-cashing joint with bars on its windows. Neon signs flickered weakly, and the parking lot was mostly empty, save for a rusted pickup and a delivery van idling near the liquor store. Fort Smith wasn't dying, but it wasn't thriving either, not with half the storefronts boarded up and the other half barely scraping by. The economic ripple of another lean year had hit hard, and folks were tightening their belts, eating at home, or skipping meals altogether. James Carver stepped inside, the bell above the door giving a half-hearted jingle. He was 62, a black man with a face carved by decades of hard-won victories and quiet losses. His denim jacket, worn soft at the elbows, hung loose over a plain gray tee. His boots, scuffed and unpolished, carried the dust of 100 roads. A faded baseball cap sat low over his eyes, not to hide but to blend. He moved with a calm that wasn't timid, a stillness learned from years navigating spaces where he was too often underestimated. His eyes, sharp and steady, scanned the room without turning his head. Old habit. Survival habit. The young host, a kid barely out of his teens with earbuds dangling from one ear, didn't look up from his cracked iPad. Table for one? He mumbled, swiping at the screen. Yeah, James said, voice low, even. Somewhere quiet, if it's not too much. Trouble. The kid waved him toward a booth near the front window, table 7, with a clear view of the kitchen door and the dining room. James slid into the cracked vinyl seat, hands resting flat on the table, fingers splayed like he was grounding himself. He picked up the laminated menu, scanning it like he was new to the place, but he already knew what he wanted. He always did. Because James Carver wasn't just a customer. He was the founder of Carver's Grill, the man who turned a single Tulsa diner in 1996 into a chain of 17 steakhouses across 5 states. Back then, he built it with sweat and stubbornness, hiring folks others overlooked: single moms, ex-cons, kids fresh out of high school, retirees who needed a reason to get up in the morning. He wanted a place where good food came with dignity, where the people serving it were treated like assets, not liabilities. But the Fort Smith location was bleeding. Yelp reviews complained of cold food and surly service. Ticket times dragged. Staff turnover was a revolving door. The number sales, inventory, payroll didn't add up. His regional manager, Ethan Caldwell, had sent polished reports blaming market conditions and labor shortages. James didn't buy it. Excuses were cheap. Truth was expensive. So he'd come himself, unannounced, undercover, to see what his people were too scared to say. The dining room was half empty, the air thick with the smell of grilled meat and stale coffee. Servers moved like they were tiptoeing across a minefield, their smiles tight, their glances darting. The kitchen door swung open now and then, revealing a glimpse of cooks who looked more like soldiers under siege than a team pulling together. Something was off. James felt it in his bones, the way you feel a storm before the clouds roll in. Then she approached his table. "Afternoon, sir. I'm Maya. I'll be taking care of you today." James looked up, meeting her eyes. Maya Thompson was in her late 20s, white, with dark hair pulled into a messy bun and sleeves rolled up to her elbows. Her apron was stained but neat, her posture straight despite the exhaustion etched into her face. She held a notepad, but her grip was tense, like she was bracing for something. Her eyes, Though sharp, searching told him she was more than just another server clocking hours. "Afternoon," James said, keeping his tone neutral. "What do folks usually order here?" Maya glanced at the menu like it had personally betrayed her. "The ribeye is still decent. Comes with mashed potatoes and collard greens. Kitchen's hit or miss, but they usually get that one right." "Let's do that," James said, closing the menu. "Medium rare." She nodded, scribbling, and walked off without another word. James leaned back, his eyes drifting across the room. A man stood near the bar, big, maybe 6'2", with a buzz cut and a polo shirt stretched tight across his chest, like he was trying to prove something. Arms crossed, he watched the servers like they were suspects in a lineup. That had to be Travis Holt, the manager. James had seen his type before, men who led with fear instead of respect, who thought power came from making others shrink. The steak arrived faster than he expected, the plate warm, the meat cooked just right. A small win, a flicker of pride. Still alive in the kitchen. But the vibe was still wrong, heavy with unspoken tension. Maya returned to refill his coffee, her movements quick but careful, like she was avoiding someone's gaze. She set the check down, a folded receipt tucked inside, and walked away without looking back. James waited until she was out of sight before opening it. Not a receipt. A scrap of paper, blue ink, 6 words scrawled in a hurried hand. Asterisk. "If you're who I think you are, don't leave without talking to me." Asterisk. He read it again, his pulse steady but his mind racing. Across the room, in the reflection of the window, he caught Maya glancing his way, not directly, just enough to know she meant every word. His fingers closed around the note, tucking it into his jacket pocket. He'd come for answers, but this was something else. Something bigger than bad service or missing money. Whatever was rotting in this place had roots, and Maya Thompson had just handed him the first thread to pull. He stood, dropped a few bills on the table, and walked toward the front. The host didn't look up, muttering a half-hearted, "A good one." James didn't reply. Instead, he turned down the narrow hallway marked Employees Only, Restrooms. His steps were casual, unhurried, but his eyes were sharp. Behind him, Travis's voice cut through the hum of the dining room, flat and suspicious. "Sir, restrooms are the other way." James paused, turning slightly, looking for the manager. "That'd be me," Travis said, stepping closer. His tone coated in customer service syrup, but edged with something harder. "Something I can help you with?" James studied him, face unreadable. "Just a word with my server." Travis's eyebrow twitched. "You got a complaint, you bring it to me. You don't pull my staff off the floor. That's not how this works." James held his gaze, voice calm but steel beneath it. "Then I guess you'll have to get used to it working different." A beat of silence. Travis's jaw tightened, but he didn't push. "She's probably in the back, closing up," he said finally, stepping aside. James nodded once and headed down the hallway. He found Maya near the storage closet, balancing a crate of lemons. She froze when she saw him, her eyes widening, not with surprise, but with a mix of fear and urgency. "What are you doing back here?" she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. "Got your note," James said, voice low. "Now talk." Maya hesitated, then pulled him into the closet, the door clicking shut behind them. The small space smelled of bleach and burnt fryer oil. She took a breath, steadying herself. "I wasn't sure you'd read it, or if you'd even still be here." "You said something's not right," James prompted. Maya rubbed her face, exhaustion seeping through her words. "It's Travis. He's not just a bad manager. He's dangerous. Food deliveries go missing. Liquor counts don't add up. Cash drawers are always off, but only on his shifts. He's got this system. cuts hours in the payroll app, clocks people out early so the numbers look clean. If you speak up, you're either written up for nothing or your shifts disappear. James's eyes narrowed, but he stayed silent, letting her continue. I worked at your Bentonville location 6 years ago, she said, her voice softer now. You came for the opening. You probably don't remember, but you gave me $100 just for helping a customer who was choking. Side-eyed initiative. James blinked slowly. I remember. I saw you today, Maya said. Didn't think you'd come back. Not like this. He nodded once. Needed to see it for myself. Well, she said, glancing at the door. You're seeing it. James studied her, not with suspicion, but with a quiet respect. She was risking everything, her job, her safety, to tell him this. You gonna be okay? He asked. I've made it this far, she said, her voice steady despite the weight in her eyes. He slipped the note deeper into his pocket. I'm coming back tomorrow, but I won't be a stranger. Maya swallowed, her gaze flicking to the door again. Then you should leave through the side. Travis has cameras on the front. James nodded and slipped out the back door, the Arkansas's heat hitting him like a wall. The note in his pocket felt heavier than it should, a small piece of paper carrying the weight of a truth someone had been brave enough to speak. He wasn't just dealing with a failing restaurant. He was dealing with rot, and rot had to be cut out. The back door of Carver's grill eased shut behind James Carver, the Arkansas's night thick with heat and the faint hum of cicadas. Maya Thompson's note, crumpled in his jacket pocket, felt like a live wire. Asterisk, if you are who I think you are, don't leave without talking to me. Asterisk, 6 words, scrawled in haste, carrying the weight of a truth someone dared to speak. He didn't head home. Instead, he drove to a motel 10 minutes away, a low-slung building with flickering neon and a front desk clerk who didn't ask questions. The room smelled of stale smoke and cleaning chemicals, the kind of place that hadn't seen a renovation since the early 2000s. James didn't mind. He'd slept in worse during the early days of building his restaurant chain. Sitting on the edge of a lumpy mattress, he smoothed the note flat on the nightstand, its blue ink stark against the cheap paper. Maya had taken a risk. Now it was his turn. Fort Smith, Arkansas, July 2025, was a town caught in the grip of a slow bleed. Small businesses were shuddering under the weight of inflation and supply chain snags, remnants of a rocky economic recovery. Restaurants like Carver's Grill were hit hard, fewer customers, tighter margins, and workers stretched thin. James had seen the reports. Sales down 15%, staff turnover up 30%. Ethan Caldwell, his regional manager, blamed market conditions in polished emails, but James knew better. Numbers could lie if you let them, and something told him Ethan was letting them. The note in his pocket was proof that the problem wasn't just economics. It was people. People like Travis Holt, the manager who ran this place like his personal kingdom. James woke before dawn, the motel's thin curtains letting in a gray haze. He pulled on the same denim jacket, the same scuffed boots, the same faded cap. No suit. No briefcase. He didn't want to look like the founder of a 17-restaurant chain, not yet. People put on masks when they know the boss is watching, and James needed the raw truth. By 9:30 a.m., he was back at Carver's Grill, slipping through the side door Maya had mentioned, propped open with a mop bucket to bypass Travis's cameras. The hallway smelled of grease and damp cardboard, a stark contrast to the polished dining room he'd sat in yesterday. The kitchen was stirring, prepping for the lunch rush. Elijah Ramsey, a lanky teenage dishwasher with a quiet intensity, scrubbed pots at the sink, his headphones barely hidden under a baseball cap. Sarah Lopez, a cook in her 30s, diced onions with mechanical precision, a wrist brace peeking out from her sleeve, a sign of long hours and no time to heal. Both glanced at James as he passed. their eyes guarded, like they'd learned to expect trouble. He nodded slightly, a silent reassurance, and headed for the storage closet where Maya had pulled him last night. She was there, stacking boxes of napkins, her movements quick but careful, like someone who'd learned to stay one step ahead. When she saw James, her shoulders stiffened, but her voice stayed low. "You came back." "Said I would," James replied, leaning against a crate of canned tomatoes. "Now tell me what's going on." Maya checked the door, then spoke in a near whisper. "Travis isn't just a bad manager. He's running a racket. Cash from the bar disappears on his shifts. Liquor deliveries come up short half. A crate of whiskey vanishes before it's logged. He's got the payroll app rigged, too. You work 10 hours, but WorkTrack says 6. The numbers look clean to corporate, but your paycheck doesn't lie." James's jaw tightened, but his face stayed calm. "And nobody's talked?" "They're terrified," Maya said, her voice edged with exhaustion. "Speak up, and you're either written up for some nonsense, improper uniform, late, clock in, or your shifts get cut." Last month, a bartender, Lise, saw Travis skimming cash from the register, called him out. By Friday, Louise was fired. No warning, no reason, just gone. James nodded, processing. He'd seen this game before: managers who use fear to keep control, systems built to silence workers. In 2025, technology made it easier. Apps like WorkTrack, designed to streamline payroll, could be manipulated with a few taps, shaving hours off paychecks while leaving no trace for auditors. It was a quiet kind of theft, the kind that hit single moms like Sarah or kids like Elijah hardest. "What about Ethan Caldwell?" James asked, recalling Maya's mention of the regional manager. Maya's eyes darkened. "Ethan's the one who hired Travis. Shows up once a month, all charm and promises, but he's part of it. I emailed him last year, laid out everything missing inventory, cut hours, the works. Never got a reply. Next week, my shifts dropped to 15 hours. Message received." James's fingers curled slightly, but he kept his voice steady. Ethan Caldwell had been with him since 2001, a quiet operator who'd risen through the ranks with clean reports and a knack for staying under the radar. Too clean, maybe. James had stepped back from daily operations in recent years, trusting Ethan to manage the southern region. That trust was starting to feel like a mistake. "Show me where Travis keeps his stuff," James said. Maya hesitated, glancing at the door again. "His locker's in the staff room, but it's locked. I've seen him messing with it after closing, like he's hiding something. Problem is, he's got cameras everywhere: front door, bar, hallway. Only blind. Spots the locker room, but you'd need to get in without him noticing." James nodded, his mind already turning. "I'll handle it. You just keep doing your job. Don't let him know we're talking." Maya gave a tired scoff. "Hard to hide when he watches us like hawks." As if summoned, Travis's voice cut through the hallway, sharp and commanding. "Maya, you on break or what? Tables need bussing." Her face hardened, but she called back, "On my way." She shot James a look part warning, part trust, before slipping out. James lingered in the closet, letting the door ease shut. The cameras were a problem, but not insurmountable. He'd noticed the blinking red lights yesterday, one above the bar, another near the kitchen pass. Surveillance was cheap in 2025, but it wasn't perfect. He'd need to move at night, when the restaurant was quieter and he'd need a distraction. Maybe Elijah, the dishwasher, could help. Quiet kids like him often saw more than they let on. Back in the dining room, James took a booth in the corner, ordered a coffee, and watched. The restaurant was busier today, a mix of locals and delivery drivers grabbing lunch, but the tension hadn't lifted. Servers moved like they were dodging landmines, their smiles brittle. Elijah darted out to clear a table, his movements quick, like he was trying not to be seen. Sarah stayed in the kitchen, but James caught her glancing through the pass. Her expression unreadable. Travis stood near the bar, clipboard in hand, but his eyes weren't on the papers. They were on the staff, on the room, on James. His polo shirt strained across his chest, his posture radiating control. James sipped his coffee, keeping his gaze neutral but steady. He dealt with men like Travis before, bullies who thought they owned the room, until someone called their bluff. During the lunch rush, James noticed a payroll tablet at the host stand, its screen glowing with names and hours. Travis tapped at it periodically, his fingers moving too fast for a routine check. That tablet was key, maybe not the whole story, but a piece of it. James needed to see what it was hiding. He paid his bill, left a tip, and slipped out the side door, avoiding the front camera. Back at the motel, he called Lila Harper, his legal advisor, a woman with a sharp mind and no patience for nonsense. "Lila, I need you to pull some records," he said, voice low. "Fort Smith's payroll, inventory logs, the last 6 months. And check Ethan Caldwell's reports. Something's rotten here. Proof?" Lila asked, her tone all business. "Working on it," James said. "But I've got a lead." "Be careful, James," she warned. "People don't steal like that unless they're protecting something big." He hung up, staring at Maya's note on the nightstand. "He's dangerous," she'd said. James had built Carver's Grill to be a place of opportunity, not oppression. But opportunity could be stolen, and he wasn't about to let that stand. He just needed to find the right thread and pull. The air in Carver's Grill felt heavier today, like the calm before a storm you could smell coming. James Carver sat in a corner booth, nursing a black coffee that had gone cold, his eyes fixed on the rhythm of the restaurant. It was Thursday, July 17th, 25, and the Fort Smith location was busier than the day before, with delivery drivers and retirees filling the tables. But the tension hadn't lifted. It clung to the servers' tight smiles, the cooks' hurried glances, the way the teenage host kept his head down at the iPad. James's fingers brushed the note in his pocket. Maya Thompson's words, a quiet fire. "If you're who I think you are." Yesterday, she'd laid bare the rot in this place. Travis Holt's theft, manipulated payrolls, and a staff too scared to speak. Now, James needed proof, something solid to cut through the lies. But proof came with risks, and Travis's cameras were watching. James had spent the night at the motel, turning Maya's words over in his mind. Travis was skimming cash, shorting liquor deliveries, and rigging the WorkTrack app to steal hours from workers like Maya, Elijah Ramsey, and Sarah Lopez. Ethan Caldwell, the regional manager James had trusted for years, was complicit, maybe even the architect. The thought stung Ethan with his clean reports and quiet demeanor, had been with Carver's Grill since the Tulsa days. But betrayal didn't always come loud. Sometimes it hid in spreadsheets and smiles. James needed to get to Travis's locker, where Maya said he kept his secrets, but the cameras, blinking red above the bar, the kitchen pass, and the back hallway made it a chess game. One wrong move, and Travis would know he wasn't just a customer. The lunch rush was peaking, the dining room humming with clinking plates and low chatter. James watched Travis near the bar, his buzz cut gleaming under the fluorescent lights, his polo shirt straining as he barked orders at a server who'd fumbled a tray. The man's presence was a weight, pressing down on the staff like gravity. Elijah, the young dishwasher, darted out to bus a table, his movements quick and quiet, like he was trying to vanish. Sarah, the cook with the wrist brace, stayed in the kitchen, her knife flashing through peppers with a rhythm that spoke of pride despite the strain. James caught her eye through the pass, and she nodded faintly, a flicker of recognition. Maya had said Sarah was one of the good ones, a single mom who worked doubles to keep her kid in school. People like her were why James had built this place, and why he couldn't walk away. Maya moved through the dining room, refilling waters. Her apron stained, but her posture straight. She didn't look at James, but he felt her awareness, a shared secret binding them. He needed to get to the locker room, but first, he needed a distraction. Elijah was his best bet. The kid was observant, always lingering late to scrub pans, unnoticed by Travis. James caught him near the dish station, pretending to check his phone. "Elijah," he said softly, "you got a minute?" The teenager froze, his eyes darting to the kitchen door. "I'm not supposed to talk to customers back here." "Not a customer," James said, keeping his voice low. "I need a favor." "Can you spill something near the bar?" "Nothing big, just enough to pull Travis away for a minute." Elijah's brow furrowed, but he didn't ask questions. "Okay," he mumbled, grabbing a tray of glasses and heading out. A moment later, crash echoed from the bar water and ice scattering across the floor. Travis's voice boomed. "Damn it, kid. Watch where you're going." Heads turned, servers scattered, and Travis stormed over. Clipboard abandoned. James moved fast, slipping down the employees-only hallway. The locker room was a cramped space smelling of sweat and soda syrup, with a flickering fluorescent overhead. Travis's locker, tall, dented, labeled T-Holt, stood in the corner. James pulled the small silver key Maya had slipped him the night before, wrapped in a napkin during a late-night meet in the alley. The lock clicked open, and inside was a black duffel bag, heavy with more than gym clothes. James unzipped it, finding a bottle of cheap cologne, a folded shirt, and, tucked in a side pocket, a burner phone, no case, no passcode. He scrolled quickly. Cryptic texts, initials only, GTLMHQ WED. A message from GT read, *, keep the cash clean. He checks. Next week. Ethan, no doubt. James snapped photos of every screen, his pulse steady but his mind racing. Then, the heavier find. A roll of cash, small bills bound with a rubber band, maybe $1,000. No way it was personal savings, not on a manager's salary. James tucked it back, then noticed a small black ledger wedged at the bottom. He flipped it open. Handwritten notes, liquor counts shorted by half. Cash totals scratched out and rewritten, hours shaved off payroll. The name on the cover read Langley's Daily Book, a front, but the numbers didn't lie. He slipped the ledger into his jacket just as footsteps echoed in the hallway. The door swung open. Travis stood there, arms crossed, no trace of his customer service smile. "You think you're slick," he said, his voice low, dangerous. "I saw you come back here yesterday. Didn't look scared enough for a nobody." James stayed calm, the ledger heavy against his chest. "You talk a lot for someone with dirty hands." Travis stepped closer, blocking the door. "You break into my locker, my office, and think you're walking out like it's nothing." James met his gaze, unflinching. "I'm not walking out as a customer, Travis. I'm walking out as the man whose name is on the lease. The man who built this place." Travis blinked, caught off guard, his bravado faltering for a split second. "You're full of it," he said, but his voice wavered. "Call security," James said, stepping forward. "Call the police. Let's all compare notes." Travis's jaw clenched, his fist tightening, but he didn't move. A long silence stretched between them, the hum of the soda fridge filling the room. Then Travis laughed, bitter and sharp. "You think this ends with me? You don't know how deep it goes." James's eyes narrowed. "Ethan." Travis nodded once, a smirk, curling his lips. "Good luck proving it." James walked past him, slow and deliberate, the ledger still tucked away. Travis didn't stop him, but his glare burned into James's back. Outside, the Arkansas's heat hit like a slap, but James's focus was razor sharp. "You drove back to the motel and called Lila Harper, his legal advisor. "Lila, I've got proof," he said, sending her the photos of the burner phone and ledger pages. Cash, texts, fake logs. Travis is dirty, and Ethan's in it. Lila's voice was calm but urgent. "That's enough to start, but you're stepping on toes now. Ethan's not some low-level grunt. If he's involved, he'll fight back." "Let him," James said. "I've got the paper." Back at the restaurant, Maya felt the shift. Travis was quieter after lunch, his eyes tracking her every move. She'd seen James slip into the hallway during Elijah's distraction, and now the air felt charged, like a wire about to snap. At the dish station, Elijah whispered, "That guy you talked to, he's not just some customer, is he?" Maya kept her voice low, wiping down a tray. "Just do your job, Elijah. Don't ask too much." But the fear was creeping in. She'd taken a chance with that note, and now James had stirred the hornet's nest. Across the dining room, Sarah Lopez caught her eye, her expression a mix of worry and resolve. Maya nodded slightly, a silent pact. They were in this now, whether they liked it or not. That evening, James sat at the motel's chip desk, the ledger open before him. The numbers told a story of greed, but the texts hinted at something bigger, a network, maybe, with Ethan. At the center, he wasn't just fighting for Fort Smith anymore. He was fighting for the soul of everything he'd built. And Maya, with her courage, had lit the match. The motel room's fluorescent light buzzed faintly, casting a cold glow over the chip desk where James Carver sat. The black ledger from Travis Holt's locker lay open, its pages a map of deceit-shorted liquor counts, rewritten cash totals, hours shaved off payrolls. Photos of the burner phone's texts, cryptic with initials like GT and HQ, wet, sat on his laptop, each one a thread tying Travis to Ethan Caldwell, the regional manager James had once trusted. It was late Thursday night, July 17th, 2025, and Fort Smith's humid air pressed against the motel window. James had proof now, but proof was only the start. Men like Ethan didn't go down without a fight, and James could feel it coming. His phone buzzed at 9:12 p.m., an Arkansas's number with no name. He answered without a greeting, letting the silence hang. "James, it's Ethan Caldwell," came the voice, smooth as polished glass but laced with strain. "Heard you've been poking around Fort Smith. Didn't think we'd need to talk." Like this. James leaned back in the creaking chair, eyes on the ledger. "You should have called sooner, Ethan." There was a pause, then Ethan's tone shifted, still calm but harder. "Look, I know Travis can be rough around the edges, but he's keeping that place afloat. Market's brutal labor costs, supply chains, you know how it is. We've had to make tough calls." "Tough calls?" James's voice was low, cutting. "Like stealing hours from single moms? Skimming cash from the bar? Or letting Travis run your dirty work while you keep your hands clean?" Silence. Then Ethan tried again, softer. "James, we go way back. You built something great, but you stepped back. I've been holding it together. Don't make this personal." "It is personal," James said, his voice steady as steel. "I built this company for people who get passed over people like me, like the folks you're robbing. You think I'll let that slide?" Ethan's tone hardened. "You go digging. It'll hurt the company. Your name's on it, James. You'll drag us all down. Then you should have thought about that before you sold us out." James ended the call. No goodbye, no hesitation. Ethan's words were a warning, but warnings only worked on people who backed down. James wasn't one of them. By morning, the fight came knocking. A manila envelope arrived at the motel, stamped with Carver's Grill corporate letterhead and urgent legal enclosure in bold red. Inside was a cease and desist letter, accusing James of slander, unauthorized entry, and interference with regional operations. Ethan's signature sat at the bottom, a bold scrawl next to the company's legal counsel. It was a classic move paper threats to buy silence. James had seen it before, in the early days when suppliers tried to strong-arm him over contracts. But this wasn't about money. It was about power, and Ethan was playing to win. James called Lila Harper, his legal advisor, and sent her the letter along with the ledger scans and burner phone photos. "He's scared," Layla said, her voice sharp over the line. "This letter's a bluff, big words, no substance. But Ethan's got pull with the board. If he's moving this fast, he's covering something bigger." "Like what?" James asked, though he already suspected. "Could be vendors, maybe a kickback scheme. Those liquor shortages Maya mentioned. That's not just Travis pocketing bottles. Someone's skimming at the supply level, and Ethan's the one signing the contracts." James nodded, the pieces clicking. "What's our play?" "Get this. Out in the open," Lila said. "The board can't ignore hard evidence, but they'll try to bury it unless you make it public. You need someone who'll write the truth, no spin." That's when James thought of Noah Bradley, a local reporter with a beat-up notebook and a reputation for digging where others wouldn't. Maya had mentioned him once, said he'd covered a labor dispute at a nearby warehouse and didn't back down when the company pushed back. James reached out, and Noah agreed to meet that afternoon at a diner across town. A greasy spoon with chipped mugs and a jukebox that hadn't worked in years. Noah was in his 40s, wiry, with glasses that kept slipping down his nose. He ordered sweet tea and started scribbling before James even spoke. Maya sat beside him, her hands clasped tight, her eyes scanning the diner like she expected Travis to walk in. "So," Noah said, pen poised, "you're the guy who built Carver's grill, and you're saying your own people are ripping it apart." James nodded, sliding the ledger across the table. "Not just ripping it apart. They're stealing from the folks who keep it running." Maya took a breath and started talking. She told Noah about the payroll app, how Travis would clock servers out early, leaving them unpaid for hours worked. She described the missing liquor, the cash drawers that never balanced, the fear that kept everyone quiet. "You speak up, you're gone," she said, her voice steady but raw. "I tried emailing Ethan last year. Got nothing but a cut schedule. Others didn't even try. They've got kids, bills, no safety net." Noah's pen moved fast, his eyes sharp. "And you're sure Ethan's in on it?" "He hired Travis," Maya said. "He ignores complaints, signs off on the numbers. Either he's blind or he's complicit." James leaned forward. "He's not blind." Noah glanced at the ledger, then at James. "You were undercover?" "Watching," James corrected. "I needed to see what my people wouldn't say on a Zoom call." Noah chuckled, a dry sound. "Same thing if you ask corporate." He flipped through the ledger, his brow furrowing. "This is solid, but it's a start. You got more?" James slid his phone over, showing the burner phone texts. Noah's eyes lit up. "Okay, this is a story. But if I run it, Ethan's coming. For you both. Let him," James said. "Truth doesn't hide forever." Maya hesitated, her fingers tightening around her coffee mug. "What about the others?" "Sarah, Elijah, they're still in there, under Travis's thumb." "We'll protect them," James said, his voice firm. "But we need this out there. People need to know they're not alone." Noah nodded, closing his notebook. "Give me a day. This hits the wire tomorrow. By Saturday morning, the story broke." Noah's article, published on the * Fort Smith Chronicle's website, spread like wildfire across X. Undercover founder uncovers theft, abuse at Carver's Grill *. It detailed Travis's schemes, Ethan's oversight, and Maya's courage as a whistleblower. Hashtags like #SpeakUp and #Carver's Grill trended by noon, with servers from other locations sharing their own stories, shorted hours, missing tips, managers who ruled by fear. The article didn't just expose Fort Smith. It cracked open a conversation about the service industry's underbelly in 2025, where apps meant to protect workers were weaponized against them. But the fallout wasn't clean. Maya felt it at her shift that afternoon. Travis was gone, fired by corporate after the article dropped, but the air in the restaurant was electric with suspicion. Some servers whispered, casting sidelong glances at her. "You the one who talked?" A busboy asked, his tone sharp. Sarah Lopez, the cook, pulled Maya aside in the kitchen. "You did good," she said quietly, "but watch your back. Not everyone's happy you stirred this up." At the motel, James scrolled through the comments on X, a mix of support and venom. "Carver's grill is done," one user wrote. "Thank you for exposing this," another said. His phone buzzed again. Ethan. James didn't answer. He knew what was coming. Ethan wasn't just fighting for his job. He was fighting for his secrets. And secrets, James knew, were heavier than any ledger. The Fort Smith sun hung low on Saturday evening, July 19th, 2025, casting long shadows across the cracked asphalt of the Carver's Grill parking lot. Inside, the restaurant was winding down, the last tables clearing as the kitchen's fryers hissed into silence. James Carver stood in the dining room, no jacket, no cap, just himself, a 62-year-old black man who'd built this chain from a single Tulsa diner and now faced a fight to save it. The Fort Smith Chronicle article had blown the lid off Travis Holt's theft and Ethan Caldwell's complicity, its words rippling across X with hashtags like #SpeakUp and #Carver's Grill. Servers from other locations had emailed James. Their stories echoing Maya Thompson's. Shaved hours, missing tips, fear stitched into every shift. But exposure wasn't enough. James needed to rebuild, starting here, with the people who'd been broken by the system he'd trusted to Ethan. He'd called a staff meeting at closing, no exceptions. The dining room was quiet, the air thick with anticipation. Servers, cooks, and dishwashers gathered, their faces a mix of exhaustion and cautious hope. Elijah Ramsey, the teenage dishwasher, stood near the back, arms crossed but eyes alert. Sarah Lopez, the cook with the wrist brace, leaned against a booth, her expression steady but guarded. Maya stood near the kitchen pass, wiping her hands on a towel, her gaze flicking to James. She'd risked everything with that note, and now she was here, waiting to see what came next. James stepped forward, his voice calm but carrying weight. "You all deserve better," he said. "I should have shown up sooner. I built this place to give folks a shot, people like you, who show up, day in, day out, no matter what. But I let it slip, and you paid the price." No one spoke. They just listened, shoulders loosening slightly, like they were exhaling for the first time in months. James continued, "Travis Holt is gone, effective immediately. Ethan Caldwell's next. Anyone else who's been stealing or covering for them, you've got one chance to walk out now, or I'll find you." A murmur rippled through the room, not protest but relief. James's eyes landed on Maya. Maya Thompson stepped up. When no one else did. "She's your new general manager, starting tomorrow. You listen to her, you work with her, you'll see what this place can be." Maya's eyes widened, her hand pausing on the towel. She opened her mouth, then closed it, the weight of the moment settling in. Sarah gave her a small nod, a quiet endorsement. Elijah's lips twitched into a half smile, like he'd known she was more than just a server. James went on. "We're changing things. Back pay for every hour Travis cut from that app. Health benefits for hourly staff, starting here. Anonymous. REPORTING line by next week. No one gets punished for speaking up again. This isn't just a restaurant. It's your livelihood, and I'm taking it back for you." Heads nodded, tentative at first, then stronger. No applause, no cheers, just a shift in the air, like a weight lifting. Maya stepped forward, her voice steady despite the nerves. "I don't have a speech," she said, "but I know what it's like to work scared. That stops now. We fix this together. What's working? What's broken? Who needs help? Tell me, and I'll listen." The meeting broke, and the staff dispersed, some lingering to talk, others heading home with a new lightness in their steps. Sarah approached Maya, her voice low. "You're gonna do fine, kid. Just don't let them push you around." Maya nodded, clutching the towel like an anchor, but the victory was fragile. That night, James's phone buzzed with an email from an anonymous account. "Asterisk, you think you've won? Check the board. They're not all on your side." Asterisk attached was a screenshot of an internal memo, leaked from Carver's Grill Corporate, suggesting a restructuring to mitigate recent PR damage. Ethan's name wasn't mentioned, but his fingerprints were all over it. James called Lila Harper, forwarding the email. "He's not done," he said, his voice low. Lila's response was sharp. "He's desperate. That article hit Hard-X is tearing him apart. But this memo? It's a power play. Ethan's got allies on the board, and he's working with someone. Outside, I'm hearing rumors he's cozy with Prime Cut, that chain out of Little Rock. They've been eyeing our markets." James's jaw tightened. Prime Cut was a fast-growing competitor known for slashing costs and undercutting wages to dominate the region. If Ethan was feeding them dirt, they could spin the scandal to sink Carver's Grill's reputation and scoop up its customers. "What's our move?" he asked. "Keep the pressure on," Lila said. "The board's spooked, but your evidence is ironclad. Push for an emergency meeting. Make them choose your vision or Ethan's." James hung up, staring out the motel window at the flickering streetlight. Ethan wasn't just fighting for his job. He was fighting to burn the house down on his way out. But James had something Ethan didn't. People like Maya, Sarah, and Elijah, who'd shown up despite the fear. That was worth more than any boardroom deal. The next morning, Maya walked into the manager's office, Travis's old domain, still smelling of stale takeout and stress. An envelope sat on the desk, her name scrawled in James's steady hand. Inside was an offer letter. Full-time, benefits, salary, general manager, Fort Smith. She read it twice, her hands trembling. James appeared in the doorway, watching her. "You serious?" she asked. "You earned it," he said simply. "Don't know if I can do this," she admitted, her voice small. "You already have," James said. "You stood up when it was hard. That's more than most." Maya clutched the letter, her eyes bright with something between fear and resolve. "No one's ever backed me like this." "You backed yourself," James said, a faint smile breaking through. "I just made sure it stuck." That afternoon, Maya led her first staff huddle, a quick 10 minutes before the lunch rush. She kept it simple, asking what needed fixing: burnt-out fridge lights, broken prep tables, schedules that didn't work for parents like Sarah. Elijah suggested better training for dishwashers, his voice quiet but firm. The room felt different. Not perfect, but alive, like a place where people could breathe again. But outside, Ethan's shadow loomed. By evening, James got a call from Noah Bradley, the reporter. "Got a tip," Noah said, his voice tense. "Ethan's been talking to Prime Cut's PR team. They're prepping a hit piece, says you're a washed-up founder stirring up trouble. To stay relevant, they're spinning it to make Maya look like a disgruntled employee." James's grip tightened on the phone. "Can you counter it?" "Already working on it," Noah said. "But you need to move fast. Ethan's got friends in high places, and they're not playing clean." James hung up, his mind sharp. Ethan's final play was coming, and it wasn't just about Fort Smith anymore. It was about the whole chain, the legacy James had built for. People who'd been overlooked. He looked at the ledger on the desk, the burner phone photos, the emails from servers across the region. He had the truth, and truth was a weapon. But weapons only worked if you used them right. The Fort Smith restaurant was quiet on Sunday afternoon, July 20th, 2025. Its doors locked for a deep clean James Carver had insisted on, though every staff member was paid for the full day. He sat at table 7, where it all began, no cap. No disguise, just a 62-year-old black man who'd built Carver's Grill from a dream and a diner. The ledger, burner phone photos, and Noah Bradley's viral article lay in a neat stack before him. Proof of the rod he'd uncovered. Travis Holt's theft. Ethan Caldwell's complicity. A system that had silenced workers like Maya Thompson. The air smelled of bleach and fresh rolls, a faint promise of renewal. But James wasn't done. Ethan's final play, a hit piece with Prime Cut, a rival chain, was coming, and the board was wavering. Today, at this table, he'd make them choose. His vision or Ethan's lies. The CEO, Richard Ellison, walked in alone. A tall man in his mid-50s with polished shoes and an uneasy smile. He extended a hand. "Mr. Carver," he said, his voice clipped but respectful. James shook it, firm and brief. "You've had quite a week," Ellison said, sitting across from him. "No," James replied, his eyes steady. "We've had quite a decade. I'm just cleaning it up." Ellison nodded, glancing at the stack of evidence. "We've read the article, seen the documentation. Ethan's been terminated. Legal's auditing vendors now, and we're rewriting internal policies." James didn't smile. "Good, but that's the start. I want back pay for every worker whose hours were cut. Anonymous reporting lines in every location. Health benefits for hourly staff, starting here. Written policy changes in every kitchen by next month." Ellison blinked, his fingers tapping the table. "That's a tall order, James." "I've spent my life being told what's too tall," James said, leaning forward. "I'm not interested in limits anymore." A long pause stretched between them. The CEO's shoulders sagged slightly, and he nodded. "You'll have it, all of it." James extended his hand, and this time, the shake felt real. But as Ellison stood to leave, James added, "One more thing. The board needs to know this isn't just about Fort Smith. It's about every worker in every location. You ignore them, you lose me and everything I built." Ellison met his gaze, then nodded again, leaving without another word. James stayed at the table, the weight of the moment settling in. He'd won this round, but Ethan's shadow lingered. That evening, Noah Bradley called, his voice urgent. Ethan's piece dropped on a Prime Cut sponsored blog. "Calls you a relic stirring up trouble. Maya, a disgruntled liar. They're pushing it hard on X, buying ads to amplify it." James's jaw tightened. "Can you hit back?" "Already did," Noah said. "My follow-up's live quotes from other servers, your evidence, even a statement from Sarah Lopez. X is eating it up. Hashtag Carver's Grill is trending again, and Prime Cuts taking heat for dirty tactics." James hung up, pulling up the article on his phone. Noah's story was sharp, unsparing. Carver's Grill founder fights for workers, exposes corporate greed. It included Maya's account, Sarah's quiet courage, and Elijah Ramsey's story of working doubles to help his mom. Comments flooded in support from workers, outrage at Prime Cut, calls for accountability. Ethan's play had backfired, his credibility crumbling under the weight of the truth. Monday morning, Maya walked into the manager's office, her new role still sinking in. The space felt different, no longer Travis's domain of stress and secrets. She ran her first full staff meeting, her voice steady as she outlined changes. Fixed schedules, new equipment, open-door policies. Sarah suggested a break rotation for parents, and Elijah pitched a mentorship for new hires. The staff listened, not out of fear, but because they wanted to. The restaurant wasn't perfect, but it was alive again. Customers noticed. The Yelp reviews turned, praising the food, the service, the vibe. Fort Smith wasn't just a location anymore. It was a flagship, a proof of what was possible. James stayed late that night, sitting at a booth with a plate of grits Maya had made simple, hot, with butter melting in the center. The fridge hummed softly, the exit signs buzzing overhead. He took a bite, savoring the quiet. This wasn't about steak. It was about people. Maya, who'd risked everything. Sarah, who'd cooked through pain. Elijah, who'd stayed late without being asked. It was about the single mom in Tulsa he'd helped years ago, the cook with the bad wrist who showed up anyway. James hadn't just saved a restaurant. He'd fought for a place where the overlook could stand tall. A week later, a teenage dishwasher knocked on the office door. "Mr. Carver?" Elijah said, his voice soft but clear. "My mom worked at your Tulsa spot years back. Said you gave her paid leave when my brother was sick. She never forgot that." James looked up, a faint smile breaking through. "What's her name?" "Ramsey," Elijah said. "Clara Ramsey." "Tell her I remember," James said. "And tell her kid's doing good work." Elijah grinned, like he'd won something, and slipped out. James leaned back, the grits gone cold but the moment warm. This was his legacy, not just a chain, but a promise kept. This story isn't just about a restaurant. It's about the courage to stand up and the power of doing right by those who keep the world turning. James Carver embodies the fight for fairness, a man who built a legacy not for profit but for people, those society often ignores, like single moms, young workers, and veterans. Maya Thompson's bravery reminds us that change starts with one voice, even when it trembles. The humanism here lies in their shared resolve. James's refusal to let greed erode his vision, Maya's risk to speak truth, and the staff's quiet strength in rebuilding. In 2025, when apps can steal wages and silence can feel safer than speaking, this story resonates. It's a call to action, to notice the overlooked, to challenge the powerful, to build workplaces where dignity isn't a luxury. The lesson? Courage isn't loud, it's persistent. It's the server who writes a note, the founder who listens, the team that dares to hope again. If you've ever felt silenced or seen someone misuse power, let this be a reminder. Your voice matters. Speak up, show up, and back those who risk everything for what's right. For more stories of grit, heart, and legacy, subscribe to Legacy Stories on YouTube or X. Join us to hear tales that inspire, challenge, and remind us what it means to fight for something bigger than ourselves.